Hi, welcome to the Pursuit of Truth. So this is the main place where I put YouTube videos. I also am on, if you want to support or find the same ones, on Rumble, LBRY, Odyssey, whichever name it's using now, and some are on Facebook. This is not the original video that would have been at this place. It was removed and I was given a strike for it due to what they consider medical misinformation. So I thought, to be safe, even though I did edit out the time-coded part that they suggested was the reason why I was getting that, but still removed it and gave me the strike. So I'm re-recording this, keeping it very brief to explain what the video was about so that it doesn't leave a gap, because I don't like the idea of gaps. So this was 368 edition of The Pursuit of Truth, and at the beginning I was just talking about a YouTube video that was removed before to do with I think she is a doctor, Dr. Emmanuel, and this was someone that Donald Trump at the time was sharing on his Twitter, now X, feed, and I was talking about the circumstances of putting that on and having it removed, when I was just, discussing about it, giving my opinion and leaving other people to make their opinion about it. I didn't actually share anything from that. All I shared was a piece that was on the news talking about Donald Trump, about him sharing these things that were contrary to what he was saying, and they were saying that he should really fact check it before he shares such a thing. And I'm hoping that that isn't a problem to share now, because it was on mainstream media and was just talking about how maybe Donald Trump should fact check things before he shares them, because this person was considered to be spreading medical misinformation.
Throwing out the first pitch to kick off this unprecedented Major League Baseball season. Okay, well, Trump is the only sitting president to not have thrown out a pitch since William Taft, right? Something that really, who cares? But he apparently does. Suddenly, when this Fauci thing happens, Trump announces himself that he's throwing out the first pitch at Yankee Stadium on August 15th.
I've agreed. Randy Levine's a great friend of mine from the Yankees. He asked me to throw out the first pitch, and I think I'm doing that on August 15th at Yankee Stadium.
Well, that announcement caught his own staff by complete surprise. They knew nothing about an invite from the team, and it turns out Trump had not been invited by the Yankees to appear on that day. According to the New York Times, the Times also reporting the president misleading the American public on this issue because he was frustrated about Fauci getting that first pitch to kick off this live sports season. This should be deeply disturbing to anybody, right? Whatever you think about President Trump, his policies, he's facing a deadly contagious virus. He's worried about being upstaged by an epidemiologist throwing out a baseball pitch. By the way, he's worried about it being upstaged about a guy. He's complaining about the approval ratings of the guy that he's put in charge of leading a response to a pandemic that's killed 150,000 Americans. That's crazy, too. Whatever you think of Trump, this is unsettling at the least. I want to go to Caitlin out front at the White House. And Caitlin, we just saw your exchange there with the president when you talked about the credibility of that video laying out this person and other things that they have claimed. He abruptly ended the news conference, turned around and walked out.
Yeah, he did. He didn't seem to want to answer more questions after he was confronted with the past statements that this woman has made, which we should note he elevated this to his 84 million followers. And Twitter and Facebook and YouTube found the information that she was trying to share, the misinformation, so concerning that they removed it as they've been trying to, navigate how to police content during the age of a pandemic. And so the president went from defending her, saying he believed that she was a well-respected doctor, to then when he was asked about her claims, saying he doesn't know anything about her. And And I think that's the question that even some of his own aides have, is why promote the post of someone that's contradicting what your own officials are saying if you don't know who they are and you don't know what their background is, which he clearly didn't. And so, what she was saying in this video even contradicts something that the president said last week, which he vigorously endorsed wearing a mask. He actually wore a mask in public for the first time recently. And so the question is she saying masks don't work? The president said last week that masks do work. So he's even contradicting not just his own health officials, but what he's also telling people, and that it's putting confusing information out there. But the president defended sharing that post initially, and then he also defended those 2 retweets that came last night, the one that said that Dr. Fauci was a fraud, the other that said he was misleading the public. The president seemed to say he hadn't been reading those, but then of course he was asking, why is Dr. Anthony Fauci more popular than me, given that we are both in the same administration? And I think, of course, that speaks for itself when you see the poll among voters about who they trust more to give them information about the pandemic.
All right, Caitlin, thank you very much. I want to go now to Dr. Jonathan Reiner, Director of Cardiac Cath Lab at GW, who advised the White House under President George W. Bush, the medical team, and Dr. Ashish Jha, Director of the Harvard Global Health Institute and our national testing expert at this point. Dr. Reiner, the president couldn't defend the person, identified as a doctor who was in that video he retweeted, right? She claimed people shouldn't wear masks because hydroxychloroquine is a cure. And then he went on to talk about all these reasons why he thinks it's fine and, didn't get him, hopefully won't get anybody else. And then Caitlin, when she pressed him about it, he walked out. He said, I happen to think it works in the early stages. Well, many doctors think it's good. You're a doctor. You talk to doctors every day. What do you say?
Well, let's start with the science first. We know, I think unequivocally, that in patients with COVID-19, sadly, hydroxychloroquine doesn't work. I would love it to work. Everyone would love something like that to work. It doesn't work. There have been 3 large-scale randomized trials, the recovery trial, the solidarity trial, and the ORCID trial. World Health Organization, United Kingdom, and NIH. All 3 trials stopped. The drug doesn't work. The fact that the president continues to parrot this nonsense is really destructive because patients will start asking for this. But I'm starting to worry about the president's mental status. His behavior at these pressers is becoming increasingly erratic. I'm really worried about this. We're in a crisis now, and last week this president spent quite a bit of time talking about his performance on cognitive tests. Today he's parroting this really debunked science, and then he's complaining about whether one of his science advisors has a higher public approval rating. This is really strange behavior. And we're in a crisis now. If we had a pilot on your airplane who started to lose it during a storm, you would hope that the flight crew would take over. We're approaching that level of concern here.
Dr. Jha, do you share that concern? I mean, when you have the president saying, I don't care what studies you put out there and what facts you put out there and what Dr. Fauci said, because they're all consistent on hydroxychloroquine in early stages. He's saying anybody who's not listening to me is they're just doing it because they don't like me.
So Dr. Reiner is completely right about this. Look, we are in the middle of the worst pandemic in a century. This is really hard under good circumstances with clear leadership. If there's any way we are going to get through this without hundreds of thousands of Americans dying, and I guess additional hundreds of thousands beyond the 150 we already have lost, it is going to be driven by science and the scientific method and scientific approach. And things about who's got a higher approval rating, which doctor you like or don't like, is irrelevant. What's relevant is what is the science telling us, what's the data telling us. If we use that, we have a shot of getting through this. And I can't believe we spend this much time because we get distracted by retweets of the president. Focus on these things. We've got to get back to the science, and I don't think the president is being helpful here.
So Dr. Reiner, the president today retweeted someone questioning Fauci's credibility. And I want to play some of what Fauci said when he was asked to respond to that. When the president retweeted someone saying Fauci was a fraud. Here's Fauci's response.
I just will continue to do my job no matter what comes out, because I think it's very important. We're in the middle of a crisis with regard to an epidemic, a pandemic. This is what I do. This is what I've been trained for my entire professional life, and I'll continue to do it.
To the charge you've been misleading the American public?
I have not been misleading the American public under any circumstances.
I mean, that's a kind of a, just a horrible moment. You have the guy the president puts in charge of it having to respond to the president saying that he's misleading the American public, right? That's what the president retweeted. He just responded to that to George Stephanopoulos on national television.
Yeah, God bless Tony Fauci. You know, if you watch the presser today, it's really easy to understand why the president can't have Tony Fauci or Dr. Deborah Birx at that session, because he says things that are outlandish and crazy. And, you know, should the physicians and scientists be made available, they would immediately fact check that and refute the president. So what does that mean? That means the president can't have truth tellers at his press briefings. What more needs to be said about the status of this administration right now? Tony Fauci is a patriot. He has spent his entire life trying to cure the most dreaded diseases that afflict humankind. He needs all our support. And when you look at the polls, most of the public really feel that way about him. We need to get behind him. We need to get behind people who tell the truth. There is a path forward. People like Dr. Jha point the way forward every single day. This is all nonsense.
So Dr. Jha, you know, what does Dr. Fauci do at this point? I mean, he's now having to spend time defending his credibility against accusations by his boss.
Yeah, so I think, first of all, it's very painful to hear Dr. Fauci have to even address this. I think he keeps doing what he does and what he's done his entire career: speak truth, talk about science, and keep looking out for the well-being of the American people. And I agree. God bless Dr. Fauci for his work.
All right. Well, I appreciate both of you. Thank you, as always. I appreciate seeing you.
Thank you.
Right, so you should have heard that bit now, which was a discussion to do with the claim that one certain drug was beneficial for COVID-19, which is much disputed by mainstream medicine. And in this piece, which I assume wasn't the reason why the strike was, it mentioned, you know, it was a debate that was making that quite clear that this doesn't work, and they would love it to work, but it doesn't work, and they're worried about the president retweeting this and going against Dr. Fauci and him having to respond to claims that President Trump made about him misleading the public and etc. So hopefully that sums itself up. The next piece I'm not going to share. Although it was on Sky News, which was mainstream media, but this may have been the reason why it was taken down, because it was a clip of Donald Trump talking about that medication. And maybe YouTube felt that by me sharing the President of the United States on Sky News talking about his claim, that I was therefore spreading medical misinformation. I don't know. I suppose possibly if I am putting on something where someone else, even if they are the President of the United States, and even if they are on Sky News where millions watch, and it's probably on the Sky News webpage if it's still on there, and me with only my few viewers gets it removed. So because it has that claim in it, and that may be the reason I'm not going to share that. But of course, this was easily researchable. I don't want to mention what the medication is, but I'm sure everyone remembers this incident that when President Trump, had this battle with Dr. Fauci about this medication by Dr. Emmanuel's claim. And then I went on afterwards to talk about, that if your main concern was the well-being of humanity, then we'd all be working together. We would all be, we would get rid of money. We would get rid of the idea of pharmaceutical companies, working on their own patented medications separately. We would all be, and maybe there was a little bit of that. I don't know if there was a bit of that in COVID time, but that's what I was talking about, that we should all be, these industries, these major companies should be sharing all the information that they find and not worry about who patents what and everyone working together to make the best medication, and to get to a stage where people could get a medication that would stop them from dying from COVID-19. So in it, I never ever, my intention was not to spread medical misinformation. I may have inadvertently done that by sharing the president's claim, but my point there was to show, well, this is what he's saying, and this is my view. And also I countered it with that, which I did share now again, with that debate where they're talking about it and making it quite clear that medically this is not sound. And therefore, based on even the training that YouTube gives, where there's there's an example of having someone, making a false claim and then someone from the medical industry clarifying that, that's allowed. So I hope that is allowed this time, because I'm not, my intention wasn't to share misinformation. I'm with medical matters. I make it very clear that, that it's, I don't know anything about medicine, but all I hear is what I hear. And this is me sort of saying, well, this is what I've heard, and this is my view, and what's yours? And so I'm like in history, you share a source of information and then you discuss it. And I felt that that was okay to do. And obviously YouTube are very strict on, especially to do with COVID-19 or 5G, in respect of that they want everything to be by the book, and anything other than that, you're not even allowed to discuss that unless you are not even if you're the President of the United States, apparently. So that's what an episode was about. Maybe in the future these episodes may come back. Otherwise they are on other platforms that I put videos on. Take care, take it easy, God bless, and peace.